Welcome to Brew Crime, the podcast where we drink brews, talk crime, conspiracies, natural disasters, man-made disasters, or whatever catches our attention. This is Mike and my co-host
JT.
Party in the front, business in the back there.
It's a reverse mullet. It was my verbal reverse mullet. Good grief, sir. Oh, how are you doing?
Oh, it's going. Not too bad. The weekend was a little crazy. It was Canadian Thanksgiving as of recording this. We might have missed last week's episode because we just couldn't get a recording date set.
There was a lot happening.
And I was going to try to get like a feed drop, but then I flew to my mother-in-law's house and then flew back for the weekend. So, yeah.
Life happens.
Yes.
If you want us to do this full time, sponsor us. I don't know.
Tell everyone you've ever met, and they can tell everyone they've ever met, and maybe we can do it full time.
Just like a multi-level marketing scheme.
Yes.
Just like good people.
Pyramid
Good people
podcast.
Like a pyramid podcast.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh God. One of my favorite moments from when I was watching the Jodi Arias trial was there's this dude named Gus, and he worked for Prepaid Legal, which is literally a MLM or a pyramid scheme.
Oh, God.
The prosecutor is cross-examining him, and he's asking him to explain what Prepaid Legal is, and Gus is explaining it, and Juan, the prosecutor, is like, "Oh, so it's just, it's a pyramid." And he's like, Gus is like, no, it's not. And Juan's like, so what you're saying is the person at the top makes the most money, and then those behind him make a little bit less. And he's like, no. And then he goes on to explain exactly a pyramid scheme.
And then he's indicted.
That always blows my mind as to how many times people can either lie or be like screw around on the stand, and then nothing comes from it.
It doesn't surprise me at all for some reason.
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh man. Well, we're talking about things. We talked about the whole natural disaster thing, things that are out of our control, other than global warming, of course. But things that we don't necessarily have control over. We just have to adapt. In this case, we're covering two things that I'm pretty sure if I pointed the finger at somebody, I'd still have three others that were pointing towards me. So,
yes, these are definitely man-made disasters. You can almost say 100%. Unnatural disasters.
Unnatural disasters, UDs, which also sounds like an STI.
Yes. Urinary deflection? I don't know. Not a UTI.
I have an explanation for that, but not for this show.
Yikes.
Cranberry juice. Just cranberry.
Yes, juice.
Cranberry juice.
Yes, no shit.
Well, after cranberry juice, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, my.
Welcome to the show.
All right. Well, I'm going first this time. So I got a short title and then the long title. So the bridge came tumbling down. Mm-hmm. When miscalculations happen, people die. This is the story of the Ironworkers Memorial Second Narrows Bridge.
Well, I like both of them. So, I mean, is it like short title, colon, and then the long title?
Or it could be like in brackets, or I don't know.
The super headline and then the subline, and then there's words for that, but I don't know what they are. So
yeah, no, and I'm a hack. I'm not an author.
You heard here first.
So the beer pairing that I'm doing for this is from Bridge Brewing Company, which is actually named after a different bridge close to the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge, the Lionsgate Bridge, which comes up actually in this story. But they're in North Vancouver, and this is their bourbon blood orange wheat ale. It's 5.5% alcohol. And I'll just say here, the ingredients say wheat, malted barley, hops, blood orange, orange peel, bourbon, and yeast.
Mm,
Haven't had this in a long time. It looks nice though.
that's a
Kind
lovely
of
color.
a orangey, slightly reddish orange with an off-white head. Definitely smells like it's a wheat beer. It smells a ton like blood orange. It's actually more than I remember. There's no bourbon on the nose at all. On the flavor, it's definitely blood orange and wheat. It's a little bit sweet. There's just like maybe a hint of bourbon in the end, but it's very, very mild. Nice summer drink though. Too bad it's not summer anymore.
When's the last time you drank it?
Oh, it's been a couple of years probably.
Yeah, could they have changed the batch? I mean, could they have just changed? Could it be
Oh yeah,
more?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely could be different. Yeah, but
okay.
it's
I don't know
I
how
don't know.
consistent they try to keep that stuff. I mean, I guess it depends on what the brand is and how big the distribution is, I suppose.
And I think they've had two different head brewers since I had it last. So who knows?
Well, that'll do it.
Yeah, it's funny how that can make things change. All right. Well, let's go back in the Wayback Machine.
Oh boy.
All right. So we should probably start in the Wayback Machine and move towards the terrible workplace accident. Story really has to start with some geography of Metro Vancouver. Now, of course, this is going to be oversimplified as there are many other cities that connect to these waters, so bear with me. Vancouver sits on the south shore of the Burrard Inlet and continues up to the Fjord Sailwat, formerly known as the Indian Arm. There hasn't been a lot of like public talk about the name change. They're doing a lot of that these days. They're changing names of places and inlets, and it's like maybe let the people know.
Yeah, for real. Like,
Yeah, I'm sure if you watch the news, you probably hear about it. But yeah, I don't
are
watch the
they
news.
are they changing it? Are they changing it back to what it should be, or are they changing it from what it has been?
They're changing it from. It might be the original name. It might just be, a proper indigenous name for the area
That's cool.
now. I'm not sure.
I mean, it's nice to know that people aren't like flipping the fuck out about it.
Well, a lot of people just don't even know it's happened.
Well, I mean, maybe that's the way to go. I mean, maybe we just need to start renaming our military bases and schools without telling anybody, and then we're fine. It's too late.
Yeah, exactly. So on the North Shore, you will find North Vancouver and West Vancouver. The inlet and the fjord head inland into steep mountains, cutting both shores off from each other. So there are no land crossings without serious day-long scenic routes, even today without the bridges that cross the Burrard Inlet. Like serious, serious terrain. So
But
even though
scenic.
it's all mainland, you can't cross without these bridges, basically.
Jeez.
So there are only a few narrow sections between the inlet known as the first and second narrows. There's actually a third narrows as well, but there's no bridge there. During the Klondike Gold Rush between 1896 and 1899, there had been talk of trying to build a crossing at the second narrows of the inlet to bring trains from northern BC and Alaska down to Vancouver. There was lots of talk of building a bridge over the years. They finally put a passenger ferry in place in a converted fishing boat along the first narrows in 1909. This ferry would run all the way until 1947. But this ferry was not going to help the slowly growing towns in the North Shore. The beginning of World War I would stop the original Second Narrows Bridge from being built, but it would finally happen after the war ended in 1925. This bridge was to be a shared car and train bridge, with trains starting to run in 1926. So a bit of a disaster, really.
Yeah.
This bridge was low to the water, though, and would have many boat strikes that would cause havoc.
Now, hold on. Oh, we mean like low bridge? Like they tried to pass under it?
Yep, yep. And on the wrong tides,
Y'all, it's not hard. Like,
Yep.
if you question it, just don't do it.
But just do it anyways.
No, boat, don't.
The bridge would be purchased by the provincial government in 1933, and they would cut a section of the bridge out and put a lift section so the boats could safely run under the bridge. The problem with a lifting bridge and a province that relies on natural resource extraction to survive is that the section of the bridge was so often up that the traffic was always snarled, or at least 1930 snarled.
19 For a second, I thought you called it a lifty bridge, and I kind of like that a little better.
You know, those train bridges that have the sections that lift up.
Oh, for sure. I was just hoping that it really was a lifty bridge. Like, are you going to take the lifty bridge today?
Right. So now in 1931, a group of investors would buy a big chunk of land in West Vancouver, now known as the British Properties. This group was led by the Guinness family. If you're thinking about the stout, you have the right idea. British Properties was where the ultra rich would start up their, at the time, whites only neighborhood.
See, when you said British Properties, I immediately said expensive. What I didn't think was racist.
Today, homes there go for as low as $6.9 million and to almost $36 million.
Jeez.
But safe to say, having the rich moving over to the North Shore, there would be a push for better access than a shitty lifting bridge or a passenger ferry. So the Guinness family would fund a first Narrows Bridge, now known as the Lionsgate Bridge, which this brewery is named after.
I had a Lionsgate Bridge right by my college.
No way.
Yeah.
And that was started construction in March 31st, 1937, after a few plebiscites were voted on. The bridge was only 2 lanes, though, and would be an early suspension bridge. So it would open on November 17th, 1938, with a grand opening on May 29th, 1939, with King George VI and Queen Elizabeth in attendance.
Wow.
Yeah, right?
Wow.
And this is all still just background, but it would be a toll bridge with cars and horse carriages costing 25 cents and pedestrians and bikes costing 5 cents. This was seriously inadequate to deal with traffic, though. With the issue with the second Narrows Bridge slowdowns and the tolls, and only 2 lanes on the first Narrows Bridge, something had to be done. So the Guinness family would add a 3rd lane to the first Narrows Bridge on May 19th, 1952. So it moved to January 20th, 1955. The Guinness family would sell the bridge to the province for the original cost to build the bridge.
Okay. Well, at least, I mean,
collecting tolls from the end of 1938 to 1955 and then selling it for the same price. That's quite the move. That's rich people move.
It is most assuredly a rich people move.
Yeah. So in 1938, that would be $5.87 million.
Okay.
The government would begin to plan a twin span at the first Narrows. The cost of this bridge would have been $17 million in 1954, but the government scrapped the idea and moved to replace the second Narrows Bridge.
I'd like to derail us for just a second, as I am wont to do, and say that I have looked up real estate in the British Properties. What the fuck?
I've been up there for some work, and good God.
This house is $35.8 million. $35.8 million. It is almost 15,000 square feet. How? Oh my gosh, Mike, the annual property taxes are 75 grand a year.
Yep.
I don't. Who? Mike, who?
CEOs, billionaires.
That's a house that CEOs
Guinness
and billionaires. Well, that's a house that CEOs buy and then eventually become house poor. There is literally a statue in the middle of the pool of 2 dolphins.
And I bet you if you look, there's probably an exceptional view of Vancouver.
Yes. The answer is yes. There's also a basketball court and a looks like mini golf.
Nice.
And a tennis court. And what? How? Who? Okay, let's continue on before I get angry. Must be nice.
There's even more expensive places in Vancouver, I think.
Nope, not gonna look. Don't want to look.
Look that up
Concern for the
later.
welfare. Imagine just those property taxes if they went to help people.
Yeah, no shit, right? Well, at least they have to pay the property tax. There's no way around that one.
That we know of.
No, there is literally no way around that one.
At least
It's
that.
the only tax, yeah.
At very least, that $38 million home is getting 70,000 a year, and that's
Mm-hmm.
so not a lot. But okay.
Actually, yeah, less than I expected. So just for your interest, before we leave the First Narrows Bridge or the Lionsgate Bridge, it is worth noting that the Guinness family in 1986 gifted Vancouver decorative lights for the bridge to make it a nighttime landmark.
Mm-hmm.
So these lights were then updated in 2009 to LEDs, and the switch was only made to save $30,000 a year and cut the power cost by 90%.
That's a really pretty
yeah,
bridge.
The Lionsgate,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it is, yeah, and it's from the 30s.
It also has almost the same lions that our bridge had.
Oh, really? It's named after two prominent peaks called the Lions.
Yeah, that's cool.
And another little chunk just of interest.
Yeah.
From September 2000 to September 2001, the entire suspended section of the bridge was replaced with nightly closures where portions of the deck were removed.
Oh, geez.
This was all while having 0 daytime closures.
Wow. Wow.
It was impressive.
That is an impressive move.
So this
Holy cow.
85-year-old bridge is still in operation today, running from West Vancouver to Stanley Park in Vancouver.
Mm-mm. That's
all right.
Wild.
Now that we're done with a history lesson. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, it's the namesake of the film company Lionsgate.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Started in Vancouver. Absolutely, yeah.
Huh.
Now it's massive.
I mean, as if you needed one more cool thing.
Yep. Okay, well, that portion of the history lesson is over. Let's move over to the current day Second Narrows Bridge. In 1952, it was noted that 28,000 boats would have to pass under the original bridge, making the bridge raise over 5,000 times a year. This would be horribly disruptive to car traffic and train traffic, especially considering how long trains are.
Well, we'll get there.
Probably a little shorter back then. The government would begin the job of replacing the original Second Narrows Bridge by hiring Swan Worcester Engineering Co. Limited, a local engineering firm, to design the steel truss cantilever style bridge. Hewitt Raymond would be hired on to build the concrete piers, and that's what now is just known as like Hewitt.
Okay.
A few sources would say that Peter Hewitt and Sons, as well as Raymond International, would build the piers. And it looks like Hewitt is well known for infrastructure, building and maintenance. And it looks like if it's the same company, Raymond International does like piping and piling and all that kind of stuff, although they're actually based out of like the Philippines or something. So I'm not sure if it's the same company. These old companies split and combine, and who knows?
They become shell companies and
yeah, exactly,
umbrella
right?
companies and ugh.
Dominion Bridge Company's Burnaby facility would build the steel structure for the bridge. Dominion Bridge Company was a no-brainer to pick, as they had built the Lionsgate Bridge in 1938 and the Patello Bridge in 1936, both still in use today. And the Patello Bridge goes between New Westminster and the city of Delta in Surrey. And the Patello Bridge is scheduled to be replaced in 2024 for $1.377 billion. And it's 86 years old. So prices of bridges have gone up.
Just a little bit.
Yep.
That makes that house look affordable.
Yeah, right? Construction on the Second Narrows Bridge would begin in November of 1957 with a total length of 1,292 meters or 4,239 feet long.
You don't have to brag.
With a center span being 335 meters or 1,099 feet wide. Wow. And I'll send you a picture.
What is it? I can look it up.
Ironworkers Memorial Bridge. is the current name.
Looking it up. Oh, wow. Wow. That is
So you can
massive.
see that massive center span,
Yeah.
the cantilever. So construction of the piers went fine, and the structural steel was being erected from each side of the inlet. At the ends of the current sections of the bridge, they would have a crane and would have sections of steel moved out to the end of the span with train cars. Ironworkers would climb on the steel and rivet the members together, only with a hard hat, tools, and safety glasses, because safety harnesses were not used at the time.
Oh, gee, that's horrifying.
Yeah, right?
Ugh.
I mean, if you've ever seen that picture, I think it's from New York, of a bunch of steel workers, iron workers sitting on that beam having lunch.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, yeah, no, not going to happen.
Oh my gosh.
So everything was going really well until June 17th, 1958, the hottest day of the year. They were joining two cords of the still unfinished arch on the widest span of the bridge from the north side. The ironworkers, as well as engineers and some painters, were on the bridge 40 meters or 131 feet from the water below, when at 3:40 things would turn bad. And here is an audio clip from WorkSafe, British Columbia.
It was a warm day, and it was just another day.
We worked all the morning putting a great big piece of steel, 55 ton, and on the afternoon we had another piece, the same thing, so that was just like any other day, another piece of steel to do.
When they brought this 50 ton out, it came out on the train. We're ready for it.
And I was lining up the line when I gave the signal to lift it up. All at once we heard a great big bang, just like a rifle shot.
We could hear these loud sounds, bang, 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 bang. All the time somebody was shooting, and it was bolts coming out of the splices, breaking off in half.
One jolt hesitated, and then she went all the way. And then the noise, it was so loud.
I was in the office, large construction trailer. We knew that it was an abnormal sound.
The bridge came out from underneath our feet. Then I was just following the locomotive from the deck down to the water. That's about 125 to 150 feet from where I was to the top of the water.
We were gone. At Lou Lachard, I talked to gone. We were just like that. And the engineer across the way was giving us a shot through his televate. He said, "Where the hell is the bridge gone?"
The first piece of steel that hit the water, that's where I was.
We stepped outside, and as soon as we looked to the front of the bridge, we knew there was a problem because the traveler was gone, the locomotive was gone, and people were running back to the office.
When I hit the water, I don't really exactly remember. I was running out of air. That was very dirty and mucky because they still mixed the mud on the bottom. Then I didn't know which way to go.
I cut my belt loose from all my stuff, all but my buoyancy, and I started this dog paddle to get out.
I saw a little bit sun ray coming to the mud. Then I made my way up and saved my own life.
It was just bedlam, hollering, screaming, people running. Sadly, there were bodies floating with the life jackets still on. It all just seemed so surreal.
There we go.
That sounds horrifying.
Yeah. Awful.
I think a lot of times, like, the first time I was ever introduced to the concept of like falling off of something that's also sinking was really the Titanic movie, which sounds terrible. But like, even if you survive jumping into the water, the fact that something that big is sinking, it pulls, and it
sure
pulls,
does.
and you're fighting against all things. That is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, 100%. It's that would just be so terrifying, even for people that weren't on the bridge, just to see it happening.
Oh my gosh, like there's just nothing you can do. I mean, all you can
Yeah.
do is just watch. I mean, that's the worst kind of thing that could ever happen is just like there's no option. You,
Yeah,
you you just have to observe.
exactly.
Ugh.
Just stand there in stunned silence. So span 5 of the bridge was the one to collapse, but with the momentum, Pier 14 was pulled away from span 4, and span 4 would also collapse into the inlet.
Mm.
This collapse would drop 79 men, a total of 40 meters or 131 feet, to the cold water below.
Jesus.
As the video said, the men dropped with a terrible crash with tons and tons of steel hitting the water at the same time. The water was also extremely cloudy as all of the mud at the bottom of the inlet was thrown up into the water. 18 men were killed, if not instantly, very soon after, either being pinned by the steel or from their heavy tool belts. One diver would also be killed in the rescue operation, bringing the total to 19. 14 ironworkers would die, as well as 3 engineers, a painter, as well as the diver. 20 other men would be seriously injured. It is miraculous that more did not die or get seriously injured, with the 79 men being involved in the construction disaster. Like, how did only 19 people die when 79 people dropped that far into the water?
I don't know. I was just briefly looking because I know like from like a certain period like point up, I mean hitting water like that's like hitting concrete basically.
Yeah.
But I found this thing where somebody from the US Navy did abandoned ship drills, and he was explaining kind of some of the importance from if like jumping that far, and he was like, wear your clothing, including your shoes. I mean, like
That way, I guess, because then your skin won't split from the impact, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, just some of this other stuff is just insane. I mean, the concept that you'd have to remember following bubbles until you get to the surface.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not thinking about that. If I fall 100 feet, I ain't thinking follow the bubbles.
I guess luckily because they were wearing some kind of life preserver, like buoyancy thing, like he said, as soon as you get disconnected from everything, it will be trying to pull you up. So at least you don't have to really see the bubbles. You'll feel the force trying to bring you up, right?
Right. Yeah, that's just insane to me. Insane.
A horrifying note that I read said that some men were only identified due to the brand of cigarette that they smoked.
Wait. Oh man. Oh.
Right?
I had to think
That's
about
rough.
that.
So 2 divers were brought in during the search for survivors. Phil Nguyen, a 17-year-old entrepreneur that later invented the newt suit for diving, as well as Len Mott, 27. Len was unfortunately the diver that would lose his life. Phil was getting ready for a salvage dive in North Vancouver when he heard the explosion of frantic radio calls. He would end up with a police escort to the collapse. The current in the inlet was horrible, and there were men holding onto the steel portions of the bridge in the water so they would not be swept off.
Oh, jeez.
Phil was quoted as saying about the men on the floor of the inlet, quote, "It was pretty macabre. The tool belts had pulled these guys down, and they were standing at the bottom. Their upper torso was buoyant because of the life jackets on, but the tool belts were heavier than the life jacket would support, so they were standing on the bottom, with their arms and their hair facing the direction of the current. They looked like they were walking, but they were long dead."
Oh my gosh. That's horrifying.
Right. And then he said, "We found one guy who was crushed in a girder with no way to get him out. He was actually smashed in there. So an apprentice commercial diver named Lenny Maud was to try and burn this guy out of the girder, and he wound up drowning. And he died on the second day of the operation." Once the rescue operation was finished and the cleanup was done, the bridge construction would resume. The bridge would finally open on August 25th, 1960, 2 years after the disaster, for $15 million, or in today's money, $153.5 million. Of course, with an industrial disaster like this, there would be a royal commission to investigate the cause. So this next portion is a quote from the Canadian Encyclopedia. "A royal commission determined that the reason for the failure was complex. involving a faulty engineering calculation on a temporary support or false work. The term false refers to the fact that the structure was removed once the span reached the next pier and became self-supporting. The design for the span 5 false work was done by engineer John McKibben, who made several errors that were not caught by the engineer in charge, Murray McDonald.
What? No, that's like check. Like measure twice, cut once, sir. Measure
Right.
twice and cut once.
The historian of the bridge disaster, Eric Jameson, has noted, however, that McGibbon's role in the collapse was only one factor. Others included questionable steel quality and lax engineering practices. Neither engineer would be held responsible for the collapse, as they both died as a result of it. In 1994, the government of British Columbia would rename the bridge the Ironworkers Memorial Second Narrows Crossing to honor the 19 men that died in the collapse, as well as 4 other men that died during the construction. Albert Birchall, Sidney A. Bellevue, Walter H. Carter, Joseph Church, I think, Kevin Duggan, Stanley M. Cartley, Frank Hicklinton, Rudolph Holzel, Alexander Hauka, Leon Joyal, Alan McPherson, J. A. Murray McDonald, John B. McKibben, Gordon McLean, Richard L. Mayo, Percy Moffat, Leonard K. Mott, Alexander Robertson, Roderick L. Smith, Alan C. Stewart, John Thompson, Thomas A. Warwick, and John A. Wright. And a couple of those names are the men that died also during construction. On June 17th, 2008, the 50th anniversary of the collapse, WorkSafe BC partnered with the Ironworkers Union to hold a ceremony to honor the victims. Part of the ceremony would be to play 2 songs that were written as tribute to the disaster. The first song is by Stompin' Tom Connors, a Canadian country and folk musician who was well known in Canada and passed away at 77 in 2013. He was an East Coaster, but this was big news in Canada, and he wrote the song in 1972. So here's a clip from that song called "The Bridge Came Tumbling Down."
19 scarlet roses the chaplain spread around in the waters of Burrard Inlet in old Vancouver town, where the bridge came tumbling down. When the bridge came tumbling down, 19 men were drowned in June of 1958 in old Vancouver town. There were 79 men working to build this brand new bridge, to span the second narrows and connect up with the ridge, till a big wind hit the bridge, and the bridge came tumbling down, and 19 men were drowned, and the medical corps couldn't be too sure of the rest of the men they found.
The thing about those songs is, like, I absolutely love the folky nature of those songs. I wish it wasn't such a terrible topic, but I absolutely adore those songs because there is nothing like the storytelling in those songs.
Yeah.
So
the next song is Steel Men, written in 1962 by David Martins, originally from Guyana, who had a calypso band named Tradewinds. He wrote the song while living in Canada, and it was performed by Roger Whittaker. Funny enough, the same year, Jimmy Dean, an American country singer, would be touring in Toronto and hear the song and get the rights to make an American version of the same song. And they came out within months of each other. Like, it was a brand new song.
But, like, why?
He just thought it was a good song, I guess. So
Yeah.
here is the original. And actually, funny enough, I found the American version first and then found out that wasn't the original.
Out on the rocky western coast in Vancouver, by the sea, at a place that's known as Second Narrows, they were building a bridge of steel. They hammered and cut and they riveted, and the welders' torches were bright. They were making a strap on the river's back, and the river started a fight. Let me tell you about steel men working on a bridge to cross to that water. Steel men working on a bridge of steel. Steel men working on a bridge to cross to that water. Steel men working on a bridge of steel. But it happened on the 18th day of June, 1958. people fished quite there from the shore. The day was getting late. Oh, the wind was a-tugging at the maple trees, but a steel man goes nowhere. If somebody wanted to bridge the Pacific, a steel man would be there, oh Lord.
That's Steel Man.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's my retelling of the collapse of the Ironworkers Memorial Second Narrows Bridge.
That. I don't know, man. That's terrifying to me. For
Yeah,
some
right?
reason. Yeah. I found one more thing in terms of like jumping,
Yeah, please.
right? And like a 28-foot dive in the Red Bull Cliff Dive competition registers about 4 to 5 G's or 85 to 90 kilometers per hour. A 150-foot dive that Mythbusters did with a dummy drop registered 287 G, which was an average drop speed of 60 miles per hour, and an average car crash rates at 70 G. And the highest, one of the highest, I think it is the highest cliff dive that's ever been successfully attempted, was 193 feet or 58.8 meters, and the speed of impact was 123 kilometers per hour.
That's terrifying.
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrifying. But I mean, like, having everything just fall around you, right?
Yeah.
And like having that expectation that everything's going to be fine because you yourself built it with your own hands, and then all of a sudden is just...
Yeah. And it's one thing to fall 130 feet with nothing falling around you, but then having tons and tons of steel just mangled, collapsing with you. Like, Jesus.
I can't. Nope. And then the visual that you gave of they had the flotation devices on, but their tool belts weighed them down, and so they were just like standing under the water. I mean, it's just, that's mortifying.
It is. It's like one of the worst images. It's as bad as a lot of images you'll hear in like true crime cases.
True crime, war. I mean, you name it. Good grief. Well, I mean, it's, in terms of loss of life, short term, because we don't know long term, mine's not as intense. In fact, it's downright infuriating.
Yep.
Overall.
Thanks for tuning in to Brew Crime. You can find us on all social media platforms at Brew Crime, including, I'm trying to figure out Tribal and Blue Sky and Threads. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Because Twitter, We have a Facebook group at Brew Crime, the group. If you'd like to support the show, head to patreon.com/brewcrime now. The money goes towards upgrading equipment and making the show that much better. You get one bonus episode a month, as well as early ad-free access to our episodes. So shout out to our Patreon supporters, True Crime Nana, 3 Beers In Podcast, and the faves of our lives. Bye.
Later.
Skater. All cases on Brew Crime are written by Mike and JT or a writer we credit on the episode, and sources are put into our show notes for each episode. We always want to give credit to the people that research the cases we talk about. Check out our store at tpublic.com/stores/brew-crime-podcast, where you can purchase gear like t-shirts, phone cases, stickers, pillows, and all kinds of other cool stuff. Brew Crime's intro was created by Mike using Creative Commons Attribution licensed audio from purple-planet.com, soundbible.com, and freesoundeffects.com. Logo designed by Ben Greenberg. Thanks for listening to this episode of Brew Crime Podcast.
I'm Maddie.
And I'm Amber. And we're Witches Talking Tarot.
And we're bringing you all things occult.
Every Tuesday and Thursday, twice a week for your magical pleasure.
Join us as we dive into aliens,
cryptids, the Illuminati,
super in the natural.
Because that's the kind of witches we are. So join these high energy witches twice a week. Come sit a spell and see why we'll be your favorites.
You're already laughing.
I needed it so bad. Yay! When's the... Oh, you keep...
Nope,
keep
go ahead.
going. No, go.
Oh, I forgot how to pronounce this. Let me just quickly see if I can get a pronunciation guide for this.
I'll just give you a preliminary Gesundheit.
Someone on Twitter supposedly.
George from the Tsleil-Waututh Nation.
Let's
I
see.
would like you to learn
Tsleil-Waututh?
this word in the Hunkaminam language. The word is Salelwat.
Okay, so what? All right.
Salayawatt is a very unique measure of wattage. A
There you go.
Salayawatt.
Vancouver sits on the show. Excuse me. This beer is burpy. The problem with a lifting bridge, and the province that relies on natural resources, here we go. I should put it in here. So construction on this bridge. That's a spelling mistake, or that's a weird added word. Construction on the bridge. Oh, just did it again.
I'm drinking wine tonight, mostly because once this happened, all the politicians did was whine, and nobody did anything.
Yep.
I'm gonna leave it at that. So, my case is titled "I'm
Wait.
on a railway
Wait.
to hell."
We got to end this episode first.
Damn,
You're getting ahead of yourself.
I'm way ahead of myself.
You are. I was like, where's he going with this?
I was so
Uh-oh.
excited.
We got to do our outro and everything first.
Let's do that. Let's do that part. That part
I'll
you
cut
just
that,
said.
put it at
That
the
thing
end.
you just. The thing you just said.
Too funny. Where's
Blooper
the-
list.
What was that?
I said blooper list.
Oh, I heard luber list. I'm like, pardon?
You buy that in Spencer's, and all right.
All right. Let me just pull one thing up here.
Like a bridge over troubled water.
Like a troubled bridge over water.
I feel like that was probably in poor taste. Oh well.